Good morning. It's a really nasty Friday today. Woke up to what looked like styrofoam falling out of the sky. That was fun. So today we're going to have a brief talk about NPCs. Okay, I have an idea that NPCs are just like you and me, but their entire worldview, their entire construct of the world that they live in is based on fiction. And because of that, see, we all innately have a penchant for truth. I wouldn't say all, most people. Most people can kind of tell when they're being deceived. However, when your entire worldview is made up of various forms of deceit, you become inundated by that, and it makes it tough to discern the different bits of deceit. It's like here's a good example. A fish. Does a fish know it's surrounded by water, or does it just see the water like we see our air? I believe that to be the case. And I think the people who have just swallowed the proverbial blue pill, drank the Kool-Aid, I think they are so surrounded by lies that it's almost like they're in that water. And because of that, whenever you challenge something that they believe, they will react in a either outwardly or inwardly violent manner. For instance, I bring some stuff up with my mother once in a while just to kind of challenge her way of thinking, and she can't hear it. These people can't hear it, and I know that in the truth community, there's a lot of speculation as to whether there are soulless entities, the Matrix style NPCs like the agents. I don't think that's the case. I think it is merely a symptom of being so surrounded by lies that it's terrifying to examine the thought that you have been lied to. It goes back to that Jenga tower. If you start pulling out lies, sooner or later their whole construct of what reality is begins to crumble. And that leads to a really dangerous mindset. I think as people with a penchant for truth, we have all been there. But I do think it was more gradual for us. Now, when we try to wake people up, it's not gradual. We have to hit them with hard truths. And people just aren't ready for that. Grief is a big emotion that if you steal the object of people's grief from them, they will react in strange manners, such as that hook that was found on that sandy beach. People grieved those children, regardless of whether those children were removed from the world or even existed to begin with. People grieved them. And that grief helped form their person. When you tell them that those people didn't exist, it makes them feel irrational. I don't think they actually can pinpoint why they feel irrational, but they do. And irrationality leads to, I don't want to call it psychosis, it's not that extreme, not that big of a deal, but it does lead to some sort of dismantling of the psyche. And so how do we approach people if the goal is to actually affect their way of thinking? How do we approach them without coming on too strong, without shattering their fragile worldview? I believe people need to see it for themselves. And I don't know. I don't really think that there is a way to truly change people's thinkings. You can point out various lies. You can do all of that, but at the end of the day, people are really comfortable in the lies that they believe. The construct that they've been given is a really safe construct. And when you start to remove that, people feel unsafe. And I think that all starts from the fact that when we are young, like 3, 4, 5, 6, we start building a construct in order to feel safe. And we add little bits from all around us. Now, if they really wanted to, all they'd have to do to see the truth is to remove themselves from it. When you view things from the perspective of, I believe this, but I'm going to look at the opposing belief, it will always be an opposing belief. It's never something that is given equal weight. Now, when you take a step back and say, here are my two options. Well, no, that is a fallacy. Here are two options which have been presented, because there's never only two options. Whenever you're presented with two options, there's a third being hidden deliberately, just like voting, just like politics in the U.S. and pretty much the entire world right now. That is the new world order, a false two-party system, two-party system, which is actually a uniparty. Anyway, so the way to actually gauge what's true and what's not is to totally remove your own ego from it and say, okay, here are two ideas. Let's view them as would a baby, although with the intellect of an adult. Play it completely through. Say, okay, if this is true, then this should be true as well, and then that leads on, and you can come to a pretty concise conclusion. But that can't happen because people's worldviews are completely bundled up in their egos. Stuff like their bank account. If you tell them so people have worked their entire lives, slaved away, given two-thirds of their whole life to an employer to work for dollar bills, which they think are money. If you approach them and say, hey, that's not really money, that's actually just debt that you actually owe, they're not going to hear it, because that has been the object of their desire. They will not believe you. And I don't know if there's a point in trying to convince people. At what point, I've said this before, at what point does it just make people's lives miserable? Now, conversely, we can't actually affect any outward change on this world unless we get a greater percentage of people to see through those lies. And I think the solution there is to raise a healthy and skeptical next generation. People my age and a little younger, a little older, we've begun to see through the facade. And so the idea is to just raise our children with a spirit of truth, rather than believing whatever comes down from on high. All right. Have a wonderful day, guys. I'm off to sell refrigerators.